Hello. The third conversation in our series celebrating MS Sathyu at 90 focuses on the film Bara, based on a novella by U.R. Ananthamurthy and scripted by Shama Zaidi and Javed Siddiqui. In conversation with Sathyu is an award-winning documentary filmmaker, Deepa Dhanraj. Over to you, Deepa.
It's a very interesting experience for me. After, say, a couple of days ago, I watched Bara the film, and there were all these memories that came back, about how that shoot was organized. I mean, and how the production actually, to make all that happen, it just all came flooding back. But at the time, Satyu, I don't think one ever got into a conversation as to why you were attracted to this novella or why you wanted to make a film on it. Can you share a little bit now why you were interested in choosing this book?
You see, when I made my second film after Garam Hawa,
Mhm.
Kaneshwarama I did, and there are a lot of sort of criticism that I was doing something mm, not of that same expectation as after Garam Hawa.
Mhm.
It was a deliberate thing to make Kaneshwarama into a middle path film. We didn't want it to be too intellectual.
Mhm.
And Bhakta, who was a producer, and myself, we discussed the whole thing. And so we deliberately made a kind of a film on a dacoit, you know. And but he had some goodness in him. Kaneshwar Rama was like a Robin Hood. He only looted the rich and helped the poor,
Mhm.
you know. But it was not highly political or anything like that, which was expected of me.
Ah.
Then I then then I thought of doing a film more political, and that's how Bara came in. I went to Anant Murthy in Mysore and asked him if he has any story to give me, because amongst the Navya movement, he was one of the most prominent writers
Mhm.
at that time, and especially after Patabi's film Samskara,
Mhm.
one could see that Anant Murthy was the right choice for a story. So and then Anant Murthy said, I have not written anything special, but I have been doing some notes on this district of Bidar
Mhm.
and the politics there, the nexus between the police and the politicians and the administration. So that sounded interesting, but I knew that it was a very dry subject. It was very difficult to
Mhm.
tackle.
Mhm.
But then I said, okay, let me see. So then I took the script, whatever manuscript that he had given me, and gave it to Shama and then Javed Siddiqui. They
Mhm.
went through the whole thing and they came up with, we did a lot of um, traveling in that area before we started actually shooting. Then I wanted to adapt a different technique in the film. You noticed that? I mean, like I wanted to shoot it like a newsreel,
Mhm.
mostly handheld camera, shaky shots. I mean, they were all deliberately done. I mean, it's not that one didn't have the means to have tripod or something, but we especially wanted that feeling of a very shaky images, and so that's how I shot the film. And you were there, you
Mhm.
in that. Bullock was put to sleep, you were very annoyed. you, were, you were new to cinema.
Yeah, it was very difficult, yeah, to no, but again, Satyu, like in the book, in Bara, the book, right, and also the film, I feel it is still so contemporary. You know, there is a way in which all those issues that exist both in the book and in the film are still with us today. So even watching it again, you feel you know, whether it's the idealism of that bureaucrat, whether it's the political conniving, whether it is the finally how the people as a whole, you know, all their issues are so disregarded. Also the cow motive. So again, when you read the book, I mean, was any one particular thing that you thought was interesting for you in all the themes? Because there's so many themes in that book.
No, basically, I was interested in the political nexus that was there.
Okay.
That was my main. I was not bothered about the other things. I mean, no doubt we built up a lot of things um, to make it a little more interesting because there was no sentimental sequences in that. You know, like when I compare it to a film like Garam Hawa, uh, is a highly emotional and sentimental also. This was a subject which was totally different, and so many things which we did on the spot or improvisations happened, you know, and whatever has happened at that time uh, is relevant today because that scene has not changed.
Yeah.
In fact, it has become a little worse
Yeah. Yeah.
than before. You know,
Yeah.
there is this, and and then the whole thing is in this whole process, the poor are totally neglected.
Yeah.
See, what happened in Bara at that time in the 80s, and what is happening today, you know, the poor, if you see the migrant labor and things like that, the stories that we um, come across, and people are unable to go to their homes, you know, and then there are some women, pregnant women, giving birth to
Yeah.
uh, uh, in a bus shelter or something, or a girl cycling hundreds of kilometers uh, with her father. This kind of a thing shows how, I mean, careless the present government has become, and it is so anti-poor. That's what I feel, and it was then and today. This
Yeah.
that's why I said this has worsened today. It's not just the virus which is
Yeah.
created this, but I mean, all these problems could have been solved or looked into, but because they are not concerned with the suffering of the people, you
Yeah.
know. Uh,
Satyu, you know, you were speaking about certain improvised moments while shooting. Can you tell us a few of those?
like for example, when all the shops are shut and the deputy commissioner is making announcement that everything is peaceful Nothing is happening, no untoward thing happened, nobody is killed. And in contrast, when the intercuts go, a woman is being chased by somebody and a rape takes place or some, this kind of thing. Um, it These were not detailed in the script itself,
Ah.
you know. These were some things which were thought of as we were shooting.
Mm.
Or even um, the the riots when people blocked the road, you know, and the police came and they make an announcement that please clear the place, and otherwise the police will have to take action and they might shoot. But at that time, I just wondered how will the audience, I mean, these people of Bida would behave. So when we had given some 50 people or something like that to throw stones, so we had made the stones out of bread. Hmm. We had baked it like stone, little. But when we started
Yeah.
shooting it and then they were throwing the bread, the others saw
I
that
know.
they should also do it, and they took real bricks and stones and then started throwing at the police. I mean, that was unexpected. So these kind of things, I wondered, if you want to do a sequence like that again, you should be prepared for that.
Mm.
So, so these are some of the on-spot decisions. When the camera is already on, then
Mm.
you have to make your decisions,
Yeah.
which is very difficult.
Mm. What I remember is that, see, it was the first film that was being made in Bidar, right? There was so much excitement among the people of the town, you know. So each time, one of my jobs, I think, was to obtain people for these crowd scenes and these larger episodes. No, even the incident you're talking about. And I remember that I had contacted boys from a local college, you know, and every day, that two, three of them in the evening, my job would be to go and meet them. And they were so excited to be in the film, you know. So any role, any part, okay. So this thing of every day them asking, अच्छा हम कल कितने लोग मैडम कल कितने लोग चाहिए आपको. So this thing of the whole town getting excited about this film shooting, you know, I still remember the in those days. Remember, there was no STD or anything. It was a trunk call. You had to go to the telephone operator. And one of my other jobs was this long list of phone calls which I had to give to the telephone operator person and say, please ये line जोड़ो ना trunk call के लिए. So even if he would ask कि कुछ आपको कुछ चाहिए कुछ मैं करूं. So he's the one who actually put me onto the police dhobi. You know, there's a dhobi for the police. We had to get police uniforms as costumes. So that it seems like the whole town, in that sense, was very happy to. I mean, you know, anytime you needed non-actors, you needed people. There was a way that they would come forward, you know, to be part of it. But I think for me, the biggest thing was obtaining that borewell rig. Do you remember actually finding that borewell rig with chasing this man because he was going from place to place with his rig, you know. So actually locating him, convincing him to come was uh, another amazing task. And I still think that scene in the film is something very, very
Let's
pivotal.
see.
The borewell, you know, when
Borewell scene, yeah.
the water emerges, right? Yeah. So The other thing I noticed, Satyu, I want to ask you about it, is that when I watched it again, that what was remarkable was the language that was used in the film. You know, that Kannada, which had the Bidri flavor, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Especially when Sima used to
yeah,
speak that language.
yeah,
He learnt it very well. And because, you know, in that border place it is, Bidar, they speak Telugu, Kannada, Urdu, a little bit of Hindi, and Marathi.
yeah,
So the words get mixed up,
yeah.
you know, and that couldn't have been written.
No, no.
Almost the actors had to improvise. A
Yeah,
lot of them did that, you know.
yeah,
And I mean, for a person like a DC, you know, Anantnag was playing, he was a sophisticated person. So
mm,
to him, an official language that he normally spoke, he spoke.
yeah,
But a person like Sima,
yeah,
you know, had to speak the local dialect, you know, that that mixture. And that Swamiji who is
mm,
carried in a, you know, he's actually a manager of a touring
yeah,
theater company.
mm,
So he was not really an actor,
mm,
but he offered himself. He said, "I will do that role."
mm,
You know, when I was looking for somebody to do
yeah,
that role,
yeah.
but he did well. He made his speech
Very good. Mm,
very effective.
yeah, yeah, totally. Mm. Now, about the language, like, you know, there is a scene where they're looting a shop, and the emoji, you know, one person he says "barri" to a Hindu man, and then an obviously Muslim-looking man he says "Hazrat." Need You know, that switch, so natural, so organic, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
the way
That
he.
he was a shopkeeper.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing is that what do you? I mean, the film, of course, became very successful. Bara, the Kannada version, you got so many awards. Also, it was a commercial success.
Yeah, yeah, it was. It
It-
ran for 100 days in Bangalore itself,
yeah,
which is a very big thing for a film of that kind.
yeah, very
You
good.
know,
Yeah, yeah,
without a song, without a dance, and
yeah.
you know, none of the normal fight scenes and things
Mm,
like that. To do a dry subject, and people went to see it, and even today they remember. I
mm,
mean, sometimes I'm somewhere on the road, if I meet somebody, suddenly says, "You are Mr. Sathyu." Oh, Nima Barana Nodidini.
ah.
Um, I mean, to remember after so many years, a film of that kind is normally no, it doesn't happen.
But you know, it's screened a lot. They people the film is screened, and I've also heard that in IAS circles in Karnataka, it is one of their favorite films because IAS officer has shown,
Yeah, they are shown specially.
you know, and they sympathize with his with actually his inability to do anything. This is what I find surprising, what they're sympathizing about. But you know, look how the politicians treat us. So it is one of their top hit films, you know, which they screen again and again. But is there anything I don't know you would like to share from that time, shooting, post production? Anything you would like to talk about that you recall?
I like the that rickshawala,
Yeah, Munir. Yeah.
Pune,
Mm.
who he was the president of their association,
Ah.
rickshaw drivers association, and he had a very kind face and beautiful eyes, you
Mm.
know. And when he comes in the night, you know, and they're waiting for,
Yeah.
and his house is burnt away and things like that. And then he comes there and he says, um, that the child has had his dinner
He's sleeping.
and he is sleeping.
Yeah.
One feels that the child might have been dead also, you
Yeah.
know. But the way he says it, and he was not a trained actor or anything, and he used his own dialect in
Mm.
speaking. And he was a Muslim. He knew the local Urdu,
Yeah.
the Dakkani,
Dakkani, he was speaking Dakkani actually. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
So he spoke in his own dialect. That was very nice. And then he didn't even expect, at that time I remember, when Anand goes and hugs him, he
Mm.
didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. But the shot was on, and we took that shot. And
Yeah.
it was
So
very,
that is a
very
very
touching.
moving scene, no? That is a very moving scene in the film,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
And
That is.
that's why I think that one hug between the
Yeah.
rickshawala and the DC,
Yeah.
um, in Suka, they gave it a National Integration Award.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of the film was not, but that one scene itself, it
Mm.
shows the national integration in a way.
Yeah. No, that is great. But this, I think the whole challenge, like, of working with non-actors, working in real locations, and then being open to whatever may emerge in the shot, like you just described, that is also very interesting strategy, for how you design this film. I mean, how you wanted to make this film, right?
Yeah, but that kind of a thing had happened uh, to me earlier also. Even
Mm.
in Agra, when I
Mm.
shot Garam Hawa,
Mhm.
I had a lot of non-actors
Mm.
who came to see the shooting and were
Mm.
standing around, and they became part of the film. The
Wow.
same thing happens in Bara also. A lot of people just came to see the shooting and they became part of it.
Mm.
This kind of an improvisation,
Mm.
which is otherwise, you have to engage a whole lot of extras, junior artists, and then create the whole thing, rehearse with them. But here there was no rehearsal.
Yeah, yeah,
they, they, they were just watching and they were being shot. The
yeah,
camera was candid,
yeah.
you know. They didn't even know that they were in the shot.
Mm.
I mean, the feeling was that.
Yeah.
I enjoyed doing that kind of a thing. And I did that in Calcutta also. When
Mhm.
I did Kahan Kahan Se Guzar Gaya,
Mm.
I used the actual, demonstration, actual students.
Mhm.
I went and shot
Mm.
there when they were agitating for something else.
And you used, okay.
I just took the shot, and
Mm.
then the lathi charge took place. The police really beat up some people.
Mm.
So we used that,
Mm.
and then used it for our purpose. But this um, participation of people, local population, makes it much more real.
Mm.
And you cannot create that with the film extras.
No, you can't.
It's almost impossible to do that.
Mm.
And, you know,
Yeah. But I remember that there is that puja scene, no, the Homa scene. There's a Homa scene in the film. And it's so interesting that even though we're doing it for a film, right? The sort of the irony of it, that when we requested people that you have to do a real Homa, and that Brahmin Pujari said, "Fine, I'll do it, but we need more priests, but they all have to be Brahmin, right?" So even though I was it was very difficult to convince him that it's a film, it's not it. You don't think of it as a real Homa, but he was adamant, and then we had to go and actually locate some 3 or 4 Brahmins who could be, who, even though they're sitting there and whatever it is. But for this priest, that was important. So for me, really, in the working as an assistant for you, Sathyu, on this film, the way the real world, real people, and what was required of a fiction treatment would often collide, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So even in the cow, the first bullock shot of the thing, where we had to go and locate actually an animal, and it was incredible because the people who, when we found one, and they said, you can have it, you can take it, were actually not the owners of that bullock. You see, they just said, it was just like that. And after the shooting, and at the time of the shooting, the family that had to sit after the
yeah.
bullet, the woman and she had come in her best clothes, because she knew she'd be in the film. And I felt terrible because I had to tell her, I didn't know what to tell her. Obviously, she couldn't look like that in the shot. And I had to say कि आप चादर पहनते हैं ना बाहर जाते हैं तो आप चादर पहनते हो ना. It was a Muslim family and had to cover up her finery with her chadar. So this whole thing of fiction, reality, what people expect, and then of course the most incredible moment was that finally the people who owned the bullock turned up in the evening and said, now you have to pay us because you have used the bullock without our permission. So this business of negotiating in a way with all these things was interesting for me. And I think finally my love for documentary actually, versus fiction, sort of emerged a little bit from all those experiences of just dealing with people. You remember the bullock cart sequences when people are, that shot where
Yeah,
they're going, and their possessions, and
migration.
that migration part, and then the thing that you will take everything precious in your house. So whether it's the Buddha, the Buddha picture, so that they are actually Dalits, that was put into the bullock cart. There are so many things like this, which
I know they were
yeah,
coming in the bullock cart, and suddenly I found a
yeah,
hen.
yeah, on the mask. Yeah.
I'm sitting, and they had brought, and then I found a picture of Buddha,
Buddha, yeah, this is the thing, that
which was not really thought of
yeah,
as such. And the people themselves, they said, all right, हम जा रहे हैं, तो
yeah,
लेके जाएंगे हमारे जितने भी सामान है घर के. And they brought the Buddha's statue. I mean, one didn't expect, even if you take your God with you, why a Buddha especially? So
mm.
maybe they were Dalits
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
huh? So
Yeah.
it
No,
just happened.
in another cart also there was a portrait of Ambedkar that was also there. These two shots made it into the edit, I think, right?
No, I remember one sequence from another TV serial I was making
Hmm.
called Choli Daman in Delhi. And there was a small Gurudwara
Hmm.
where I wanted to shoot a sequence of a wedding. And there was a Granthi who was ready to do all that, I mean, a real Granthi.
Hmm.
And so I took this Hindu girl and a Sardarji. The actor was a Sardar, but the other one was a Hindu girl. And they were getting married. So I wanted to do that pere
Hmm.
round the Guru Granth Sahib. And then, so when we were doing the third round or something like that, he says, अब शादी हो जाएगी, the Granthi said.
Hmm.
मैं उसको वो नहीं कर सकता.
Hmm.
So if you take one more round, then that means
They're really
they are
married.
really married.
Hmm.
I said, ये तो सिर्फ शूटिंग है. नहीं नहीं, शूटिंग नहीं है, हमारे लिए तो ये एक्चुअल वेडिंग चल रहा है.
Yeah.
And anyway, we managed it, and then ultimately we said, all right, for the Granthi, let us do this thing, and then we will not, we don't have to go for a divorce.
Yeah. But Satya, I wanted to ask you one question. In the film, you end the film with, the announcement is made by the CM that, okay, we will now start drought relief
Relief
work, and the SP says, oh, this damn politics or whatever it is. But the book has him actually resigning and becoming a lecturer. You didn't want to keep that part of it in the film. You stopped it there.
The book came much after the film was made.
Oh, acha. I thought it was published in the
No,
70s.
it was not published.
Oh, okay. So this wasn't in the manuscript you got.
Yeah.
This part of what
No, that was Anantmurthy wrote it later on.
later on. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Right. Because I was curious about that. How the yeah
Yeah.
how he yeah, because in the book that would mean that he's completely given up.
Yeah.
You have that ending. It's that let us leave this because one cannot do anything actually. It's like yeah. So what was Anantmurthy's reaction to the film, Sathyu?
I think he liked it very much.
Hmm.
And he didn't expect a thing like that it would happen. I
Okay.
mean, it is not the usual kind of story which one picks up for a film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was maybe he he might have got a few more ideas. After seeing the film also,
Oh.
and he incorporated in his when it came as a book form. I
Oh.
remember one thing which was very interesting. When
Hmm.
we had a screening of this film in Chodaya Memorial Hall, almost an inaugural screening, I had called Gundu Rao, who was the chief minister. So he came to see the film. And after seeing the film, when he was going out, he said, if you had met me earlier, I would have given you some more hints as what games we play.
Oh.
You could have put it in. Because he saw that this is what he plays also, you know. Gundara was very open about it. And he says, this kind of thing we do, you know.
So Satyu, remember the CM? You only insisted on his hand being in the film as representing him, no? The cigar, the hand, the ring. What was that choice? Why did you create a character who's just a voice and a hand?
No, I didn't want to really show because there is the number of chief ministers at the
Hmm.
time may have been about 6 or 7 chief ministers after independence.
Hmm.
So I didn't want to pinpoint anybody particularly.
Hmm.
And is it Devrajars,
Yeah.
for example, you
Hmm.
know, who used to smoke?
Hmm.
Huh? So I wanted to keep it as vague as possible.
Hmm.
Try to. That's why I didn't want to show the face of the man. I
Hmm.
mean, which I have done even in Garamava. I have not shown some of the negative characters,
Hmm.
who where Balraji goes and meets, and then I don't show the other person. A
Hmm.
person who doesn't want to rent out his house, a
Hmm.
Hindu,
Yeah.
to a Muslim. I didn't want to show that man,
Hmm.
almost like the villain of the whole piece. So
Hmm.
that I had done then, and so I repeated that kind of a technique. It works in many ways.
Hmm.
Otherwise, people will start talking about, oh, ye Devaraja's ke time mein hua, yeah, somebody's, nijalinga us, Uh,
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be dated like that.
Hmm. Yeah. So then it's interesting that in the film these styles that you used, no, you've used like this style is almost like a comical style, you know, just the hand appearing, you know,
Yeah.
it's like what people do in street theater, for example. You know, this very, very overblown character. Even Bimoji sometimes is a very, very over the top acting, you know, that kind of thing. Then you have the other thing, which is the landscape, which is a real character in the film, which is very different. You have actual people's faces, which bring about the, you know, the tragic circumstances of what they're going through. So this mixing of all this also is quite interesting and must have been quite new at that time, right? This kind of
Yeah, maybe.
hmm?
Those hands are, these are the same hands
Yeah.
of the chief minister.
I yeah,
It's my hand.
right. Okay, they have a question. Um, okay, with the sharp and ideologically inclined characters, how did your actors reconcile with their characters? Or do these matters concern the director at all?
You see, it depends. If there is a professional actor
Hmm.
like Anand, for example, or Shriram, Shivram, they are a professional actors, you know. And even Simha was a professional actor. Uma was a professional. I mean, she had acted in other films also, and
Hmm.
on stage. So to them, although politically they may not think in the same fashion, you know,
Hmm.
their ideology might be different. I'm
Hmm.
sure a person like Simha's ideology was different from what he was doing.
Hmm.
But as a professional,
Yeah.
he could execute it.
Hmm.
So this happens. And you see, when I did Garam Hawa, I almost had everyone who was a leftist,
Yeah. On the yeah.
you know, and they were all in tune with what we were trying to do. But that same thing didn't happen um, in Bara.
Hmm.
Bara, ideologically, people thought differently.
Hmm.
Perhaps the only person who was inclined was Anand Nag. You know,
Hmm.
I
Okay.
mean, now, so for example, the other friend who was there, like that squadron leader
Hmm.
role in Malhotra,
Hmm.
he was not politically tuned that way,
Hmm.
but he was playing a role
Hmm.
as a regular actor.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most actors, I don't think for them, you're right, it's just a role. It's got nothing to do with
Yeah,
what they believe or, yeah, and it doesn't come into the picture actually, right?
I mean, I just wanted to say, as right in the beginning, I said I just wanted this kind of a newsreel
Look.
effect in the whole film, and I tried to retain that.
Hmm.
And although the entire thing is planned,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that it's not planned. And the way you see the administration, the office of the administrator is in ruins, and it is inside the fort,
Hmm.
and the fort is in ruins. On the ramparts of the fort, a lot of scenes take place between the SP and the DC, that argument between them, and he wanted
Hmm.
to give him the shooting order and things like that. And
Hmm.
that whole dramatic scene that takes place, I wanted to show how the the fort is not just a for architectural reason, but fort is the collapse of the system,
Hmm.
which is in ruins, and that is how the fort was used. You know,
Yeah.
Because this, when you are doing a film on location, you think it's not planned. No, you
Mm.
choose a
Yeah.
location and
Mm.
you plan out your shots, you know, in in that manner. Otherwise, there was no need. I mean, a DC's office needn't have to be uh, inside a fort like that.
Yeah.
You know?
No, also I think the color palette of the film is also very deliberate. Those long traveling shots of the,
Yeah,
arid brown landscape. That that color palette is retained. In a way that also, I think that when I said the landscape is also is also a character in that sense, in the film, the way you have shot it and the way you have used it, right? So, yeah, that's also very
even
important.
that sequence where the person is gifting away land, a
Hmm.
barren land
Yeah,
is being gifted, and we had to go all the way
yeah,
outside
yeah.
Bidar and put up a shamiana
Hmm.
and shoot it in that barren land.
Hmm.
So that was all done very deliberately.
Hmm.
You know, it was not just offhanded. It was a planned thing.
Hmm.
You have to when you're shooting on location, you have to plan, choose the location
Yeah.
to suit your scene.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to enhance the requirement of a scene.
Hmm.
So, I mean, sometimes the art direction or production designing, means only putting up sets or something.
Hmm.
No, it is not.
Hmm.
Even the choice of a street, a choice of a, landscape is as important. And
Hmm.
that's where the designing comes in. A production designer has to choose these things.
Even, Bhimoji's house, for example, no, when he enters the house, and you see the wall, there is a pan shot on the wall of, there's everybody is there, Lenin is there, um, Ambedkar is there, that all those pictures on the wall, right?
Yeah, you could, if you see it in a detail, there
Yeah,
are gods
yeah, as-
pictures which probably the wife,
yeah.
worships.
Hmm.
But for him as a politician, his
Hmm.
pictures are Lenin and
Yeah.
Marx and people like that. I mean, who have inspired him in his life. So these are a very
Yeah.
deliberately sort of decorated wall, you
Hmm.
know. And even when the DC comes
Hmm.
inside the house and he's given a a chair to sit, he watches the
Yeah.
wall
Yeah.
in detail, sort of there is a shot. I
Yeah.
remember the shot even now.
I remember trying to obtain those pictures to put on the wall. So, yeah. Okay, there's another question. How come it was made in two languages, the film? Can you share something about that? Yeah.
No, I had done even in Kaneshwarama, I wanted to be done in two languages.
Mm.
And we had mm, done Kaneshwarama in both Kannada and Hindi.
Mm.
And here again, I wanted it to be um, the local dialect as well as one in Hindi, because the Hindi will take it to a wider audience in India.
Mm.
A Kannada film may not
Mm.
reach uh,
Mhm.
that bigger audience. So the idea was that, but unfortunately, both in Kaneshwarama, the Hindi version, and even Sukha was couldn't be released.
In
You know,
Hindi. Yeah.
unfortunately, it happened, didn't work out. But we had shot, we had two negatives of.
But it was shown on Doordarshan, I think, no? So
Yeah,
what
it was shown on Doordarshan. I mean,
have
see,
approximately?
Doordarshan means it's only one screening or two screenings, and that's about all.
Hmm.
And how many people see it? But taking a film to a theater is very different.
Correct, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Now, for example, today that there is no cinema hall showing any film anywhere in the country.
Right.
But that is such a setback for the film industry.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you depend on screening in the big theaters.
Hmm.
However much you do, online and things like that,
Hmm.
it doesn't reach that kind of an audience.
Right.
The whole idea of a film is to make it bigger than life.
Yeah.
You see, television will make things smaller than life.
Hmm.
So it reduces it, it puts it into a little box.
And now we're watching on phones, so
Yeah.
which is even worse.
You
Not as
know,
yeah.
the borewell that we made
Hmm.
in that place, in that rocky
Yeah.
area, that really become
Hmm.
a source for the village
Yeah.
now.
Fantastic, no? Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
the water, there was no water in that village.
Hmm.
And
Right.
what we did for the shooting
Hmm.
has become a reality for them.
Yeah.
And they have that. I
No.
remember, actually, when you are boring a well like that, the water doesn't come out that manner.
Hmm.
You see, in one of the Griffiths films, where they're boring for oil, and then the oil jets out,
Hmm.
you know, into a huge fountain.
Hmm.
I had seen that, in a documentary like that.
Hmm.
And that I was in my mind. So I wanted this whole thing to rush out, gush out of the earth. And it gives a fantastic effect. People collecting the water from there.
Yeah.
That was, I think, I mean, it was unreal, because we were pumping air to bring that
Water out. Yeah.
water out,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But cinematic liberty has to be taken. Sometimes, I mean, it looks real, but
But
one has to do it.
film is functioning still, so I think that is fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, this aspect one nobody asked. There is no background music in Bara.
Hmm.
Normally, you use music to underline, give emphasis. But I thought it was unnatural to have music. Um, and in Bara, when I went to do the mixing into Madras at the AVM studios, I did the mixing for this film. And then there they call it, it's like the background music being done. Their mixing is, it's like adding background music.
Hmm.
So there is a whole orchestra which comes and things like that. So when I went there, he says, your musicians have not come, they said. I
Hmm.
told the recordist, no, there are no musicians here. This is, then what kind of background, I mean, mixing is this? He says, there are tracks. You just made soundtracks.
Hmm.
So I have nearly 6 soundtracks. There is a dialogue track and the effect tracks and things like that.
Hmm.
So ambience, you have to. So he said, then he called some
Hmm.
other technicians also to come down to the studio and watch it, you know. And they were surprised that there were no musicians. Otherwise, everything is you know,
Yeah.
played. They look at the picture and
Hmm.
then play accordingly the instruments, So this was one thing which I tried, and
But you did
people
have two songs, Satyu. You did have
only only those that one or two poems are there,
hmm.
you know, which I have used there, and they are also without any kind of orchestration. There's
Yeah.
only a duff which is used to give a little rhythm to it, but there is no song
Hmm.
as such. It is, you know, it
Hmm.
just it's just recitation.
So why did you make this choice? This choice? Why did you do this?
Which one?
Not having
Why?
background music.
Why I avoided?
Yes. Yes.
I've always felt that way.
Hmm.
That background music is an unnecessary in films.
Hmm.
If the film has a potential,
Hmm.
you see, so it is something like somebody getting out of some chief minister or somebody coming down the aircraft, and then suddenly hear in the background the sitar being played. I mean,
Hmm.
it looks so odd to me.
Okay.
You know, it's incongruous. Why
Hmm.
should there be background music? You know,
Hmm. Okay. So that was
but background music in certain in the films enhances the 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 ambience. It does that. It has an effect if you use it properly.
hmm.
But many times it so happens there is just this noise going on in the background, and in the background of a conversation which has no relationship with what the music is, you know.
Hmm.
So that looks very unnatural to me.
So my last, it's not a question really, but I was just curious, because didn't you make Chite Guchinte before Bara? No,
Yeah,
right?
76, yeah.
Correct, yeah. So I was just wondering, like between the two films, between Chite Guchinte, Bara, and the fact that Bara was written really during the emergency, I think Anantmurthy wrote it at that time. And I feel somehow the sort of that kind of energy, that irony, that subversive character, which was in Chitegu Chinte into Bara, plus at the same time you did Kuri, no? The play,
Yeah.
right? And you had so many performances of that play, right? And all of them somehow to me have the same bhava. I don't. Would you agree with me or not?
Yeah, you see, Kuri, I mean, it is from a Hindi play called Bakri,
Yeah,
written by Sarveshwar Dayal Saxena.
yeah,
And it was the very first play written against the emergency.
exactly. Yeah.
And Chitaguchinte, at that time, it so happened that the emergency had just
Ended.
ended.
Hmm.
And I was making the film, so that was in my mind all through.
Right, right. Yeah.
And so it was an attempt to expose that kind of a thing, but
Mm,
in a very comic
yeah.
fashion,
Yeah.
and used a parody,
Hmm.
you know. So, but um, in Bara, it was a much more serious
Hmm.
attack on that,
Yeah.
actually.
But
And
certain elements, I feel, like for example, Bhimoji's characterization, his little bit, his over the top style, little bit. I somehow felt because I saw Chitegu Chinte, I've seen the Kuri performances, and I also we knew what emergency was at that time, right? So I just felt looking at it today, I said, oh, somehow this reminds me, of that spirit. There is
yeah,
that spirit is definitely there in it, in the film. So Yeah, so certain historical, political, social moments throw up a certain creative response, you know, that is very different, right? I don't know. That's what I felt at least. Yeah.
I think whatever I am doing, for example, my last film, Jodu,
Mm,
it's about a Devdasi system.
mm,
But then there were so many places, the political comments were contemporary.
mm.
Although the whole story was
Yeah.
way back,
Yeah.
I brought it to the present in a way. But that was an improvisation which I do. I think it's in my mind,
Mm,
it's always there.
mm,
I there is a, there is always a political accent
mm.
to whatever I do, because I do a lot of theater also, which is more
Exactly.
political,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
in character.
Yeah.
So I did a play called Rakshas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Rakshas is a play, it's a Russian play, but written by Schwartz.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it was very difficult to 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 write and enact political plays in Russia,
Mm-hmm.
in the Soviet Union. Some of the writers like Gogol and Schwartz, they wrote plays and they camouflaged it like a children's play and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, for the children, it was just fun.
Mm-hmm.
But for the adults who saw the same
Mm.
play, it was political. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think even when Satyajit Ray um made Gopi Gayan,
Yeah.
it's against the emergency.
Mm.
It was a political play,
Yeah.
political film, you know. Although nobody sort of mentioned that, you know, and there was another play, film of Mr. Ray, which about the young people, and that was also very political,
Mm-hmm.
highly political. He used to do it. I mean, normally people always said that Mridal Sen is a political filmmaker and
Mm.
not Ray.
Mm.
No, Ray also was a political filmmaker, you
Yeah.
know, and he did a play Ganashatru.
Mm.
You know, that was a that was enemy of the people.
Mm-hmm.
It was based on Ibsen. It was totally a political thing.
Mm.
People somehow miss this point.
Yeah.
To me, Ray was also a political filmmaker.
So I think Satya, thank you very much for this conversation, and really, and thank you for taking me back to that time.
No,
Hello.
just I wanted to thank BIC also, and thank you for taking me back to those days.
Yeah.
The, it makes you very nostalgic.